The acid rain stung Mila's skin as she huddled deeper into the abandoned loading dock, pulling her sleeping daughter Tora closer against her chest. The child's breath came in small, shallow puffs, her once vibrant purple skin now ashen and dull. 3 cycles of this planet's sun had passed since they'd had a proper meal. The thought made Mila's stomach clench with both hunger and desperation. "Just a little longer, little star," she whispered, brushing back Tora's feathery hair. "Mother will find something soon." The spaceport district of Nova City never truly slept. Even in the dead hours of night, cargo ships arrived and departed in a constant rhythm, their engines sending tremors through the ground beneath them. Mila had learned to time her scavenging to coincide with the shift changes when the dock workers tossed their half-eaten meals into waste receptacles before heading home. Gently, she placed Tora on the makeshift bed of packaging foam she'd collected, covering her with the thermal blanket she'd managed to salvage during their escape from the refugee processing center. The blanket, like everything else they owned, was government-issued, marked with the stark symbol that identified them as displaced persons from Asteria, a planet that no longer existed except in Mila's memories. "I'll be right back," she promised, though Tora didn't stir. Survival had its routines. Mila knew exactly which loading bay housed the most generous workers, which trash compactors were checked less frequently, which security drones had blind spots in their patrol patterns. Tonight, she headed for Bay 12, where the Centaurian freight haulers often discarded perfectly good food simply because it had touched their oddly superstitious hands. The rain had intensified by the time she reached her destination, plastering her silver hair to her skull. She waited in shadows as the last hauler punched out, then slipped into the bay, her movements quick and practiced. The waste bin yielded little at first: packaging, broken hardware, disposable gloves, but as she dug deeper, a packet of protein bars appeared, still sealed inside their wrapper. "Thank the stars," she breathed, tucking them into her pocket. She was reaching for what looked like an untouched fruit cup when the bay doors hissed open. Mila froze, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Hello?" A deep voice cut through the sound of rain. "Is someone there?" Mila ducked behind the bin, calculating her escape route. The voice belonged to a human male, not security, judging by the lack of radio chatter, but potentially just as dangerous. Humans were unpredictable in their treatment of aliens, especially refugees. "I can see you," the voice continued, gentler now. "I'm not going to report you." Slowly, Mila rose from her hiding place, keeping her eyes lowered in the submissive posture they'd taught all Asterians to adopt when confronted by authorities. She heard footsteps approaching, and braced herself. "You're soaked through," he said. She risked a glance up. The human was tall, with dark skin and eyes that reminded her of Asteria's twilight sky. He wore a medical insignia on his jacket, not military or security, then, but a healer. "I'm Elias," he said, making no move to come closer. "I work at the community clinic across the transit line." He reached into a bag slung across his shoulder and pulled out a container. "Here. It's just dinner from the cafeteria, but it's warm." Mila stared at the offered food, unable to comprehend this unexpected kindness. "My daughter," she finally managed, her voice rough from disuse. "She's very hungry." Elias nodded, his expression softening. "There's enough for both of you. And I know a place you can stay tonight, a real shelter, not these docks. If you want." Tears burned at the corners of Mila's eyes as she reached for the container with trembling hands. Its warmth shocked her cold fingers. "Why would you help us?" she asked. Elias's smile was tired but genuine. "Because everyone deserves to be seen, especially when they think they're invisible." For the first time in many dark nights, Mila felt something unfamiliar flutter in her chest, the tentative, fragile wings of hope taking flight. The shelter's ceiling leaked in 17 different places. Mila had counted them during her first sleepless night, watching water droplets perform their slow, inevitable descent into strategically placed buckets. 2 weeks had passed since then, yet she still startled at every creak and footstep, her body conditioned to expect danger rather than sanctuary. "You're doing that thing again," observed Natera, an older Proximan woman who ran the shelter's kitchen with military precision. Her skin shimmered with iridescent scales that caught the light as she chopped vegetables. "Scanning exits, calculating threats. Your neck will ossify if you keep twisting it like that." Mila's hand instinctively went to the ridge of cartilage at the back of her neck, an Asterian evolutionary trait that once protected warriors but now only marked her as different. "Old habits," she murmured. "Your daughter doesn't do it," Natera noted, sliding a bowl of steaming broth toward Mila. "She adapts like water finding its path." Across the common room, Tora sat cross-legged on the floor with 3 other refugee children, their differences in species forgotten as they competed in a game involving colored stones and elaborate hand gestures. Her daughter's laughter, a sound Mila had feared she might never hear again, bubbled up above the shelter's ambient noise. "She was born during evacuation," Mila said quietly. "She never knew home the way I did." The door chime interrupted their conversation. Natara's expression softened into something almost mischievous. "Your doctor is punctual today." Heat rushed to Mila's face, turning her silver-blue skin a deeper shade of cobalt. "He's not my doctor." But it was indeed Elias who entered, shaking rain from his coat and running a hand through his close-cropped hair. His visits had become a near-daily occurrence, always with a professional excuse, a medical checkup or supply delivery, yet lingering far longer than necessity required. "Mila," he greeted, his voice warming on her name in a way that made her chest tighten. "And how's our patient today?" "Tora hasn't coughed since yesterday," she replied, keeping her tone neutral despite the fluttering beneath her ribs. "The medicine worked." "Excellent." He knelt to examine the child, who barely paused her game to submit to his gentle prodding. "Her respiratory passages are clearing up nicely. Asterian physiology is remarkably resilient. When properly nourished," added Natera pointedly, before disappearing into the kitchen with a knowing smirk. Left alone, an awkward silence stretched between them. Mila busied herself reorganizing their few possessions, the thermal blanket, now clean, a small collection of smooth stones Tora had gathered, the identification chip that proved her right to temporary asylum. "I have something for you," Elias said suddenly, reaching into his bag. He pulled out a data tablet, its screen cracked but functional. "It's outdated, but I loaded it with language programs. The market vendors respect negotiators who speak their native dialects." Their fingers brushed as she accepted it, sending an electrical sensation up her arm that had nothing to do with the device's power source. The unexpected kindness made her throat constrict. "Why do you keep helping us?" The question escaped before she could contain it. Elias looked startled, then contemplative. "My grandmother was a refugee from Earth's last resource war. No one helped her." He hesitated. "And maybe I'm being selfish. I enjoy your company." The admission hung between them, dangerous and exhilarating. Mila's culture had strict protocols for courtship, elaborate rituals spanning months. Humans, she'd observed, operated on impulse and chemistry, a bewildering system. "I found work," she said abruptly, changing the subject. "Starting tomorrow. Sorting cargo manifests at the Eastern Hub." His smile ignited something in her she'd thought had died with her planet. "That's wonderful. Your categorization skills impressed them?" "Actually," she admitted, "I told them I could interface directly with their computer systems." At his confused look, she reluctantly pushed back her silver hair to reveal the neural ports at her temples, another Asterian feature, typically hidden from outsiders. "It's how we communicated with our technology. They're dormant now, but they don't know that." Instead of the revulsion she expected, his eyes widened with fascination. "That's brilliant," he laughed, the sound washing over her like sunlight. Absolutely brilliant. The moment was shattered by a commotion at the door, a new refugee arrival, badly injured. Elias transformed instantly from charming companion to focused physician, barking orders as he rushed to assist. Mila watched him work, admiring the surety of his movements, the calm authority he exuded. In that moment, something shifted inside her, a wall crumbling, exposing vulnerable terrain she'd kept fortified since fleeing Asteria. Later that night, as Tora slept peacefully beside her, Mila activated the tablet Elias had given her. The screen illuminated her face as she bypassed the language programs and instead accessed the device's personal log. Holographic images sprang to life, Elias with colleagues, with family, with a woman whose features suggested more than friendship. The woman appeared in several recent entries, her arm linked through his, her smile intimate. Mila's finger hovered over the playback button, knowing she was violating his privacy yet unable to stop herself. "Told Amara it's over," his recorded voice said quietly. "She doesn't understand why I'm spending so much time at the refugee center. No one does. But there's something about Mila that I can't explain, like recognizing a constellation you've never seen before but somehow already know." Mila shut off the tablet, her heart racing. Such dangerous, unfamiliar territory, this tentative trust, this potential for connection. She'd lost everything once before. Could she risk her heart now, on this alien world, with this alien man? The answer whispered through her mind as she drifted toward sleep. Perhaps survival meant more than simply staying alive. Perhaps it meant learning to live again. The market pulsed with life, a dizzying array of species bartering, arguing, and gossiping beneath canopies of multicolored fabrics. Mila moved through the crowd with newfound confidence, her silver hair now styled in intricate braids adorned with copper wire, a gift from Natera who insisted hiding beauty is an offense to the universe. 3 months had transformed her. Regular meals had restored the luminescence to her skin, and her job at the cargo hub had given her enough credits to purchase proper clothing. Still, she kept her neural ports concealed, a habit born of caution rather than shame. "Mila. Over here." Elias waved from a food stall, Tora perched on his shoulders, her small purple hands tangled in his hair. The sight of them together sent a complicated warmth through Mila's chest. "Higher." Tora commanded, and Elias obediently hoisted her up, eliciting a delighted squeal. "You'll spoil her," Mila chided as she approached, though her smile betrayed her. "That's my solemn duty," he replied with mock seriousness. "As decreed by the interplanetary Uncle Code." Uncle. The word both relieved and disappointed her. They'd settled into this careful designation of roles, her provider of occasional medical care, her daughter's honorary uncle, her friend. Nothing more, despite the electricity that arced between them whenever they stood too close. "There's someone I want you to meet," Elias said, setting Tora down. "My sister Lena is visiting from the southern continent. She's having dinner with us tonight." Mila froze. "Us?" I told her about the amazing Asterian who can outprogram any AI system at the cargo hub. His eyes crinkled with that smile that made her forget to breathe. "She's fascinated. Said she wants to pick your brain about Asterian bioneural interfaces." "You told her about my ports?" Instinctively, Mila's hand flew to her temple. His expression sobered. "Only that they exist. I'd never betray your confidence, Mila." The sincerity in his voice melted her resistance. "What time is dinner?" Lena Cordova's apartment occupied the entire top floor of a sleek building in Nova City's affluent district. Mila hesitated at the entrance, suddenly conscious of her second-hand clothes and the fact that Tora was clutching a stuffed toy fashioned from scraps. "Maybe this isn't." "Too late," Elias interrupted cheerfully, pressing his palm to the scanner. "She's already made dessert with real chocolate. Do you know how rare that is out here?" The door slid open to reveal a stunning space of curved walls and panoramic windows overlooking the spaceport. A striking woman who shared Elias's twilight eyes approached, her smile cautious but genuine. "Welcome to Nova City," she said, extending a hand in the human greeting custom. "Elias talks about you constantly." "He does?" Mila glanced at him, catching the flush rising on his cheeks. Dinner was a revelation, not just the food, which was magnificent, but the way Lena treated them as honored guests rather than charity cases. She asked Mila about Asturian culture, literature, science, genuine curiosity without the usual undercurrent of pity that Mila had grown to despise. "You should come to the institute," Lena said over dessert, as Tora dozed in Elias's lap. "Our researchers would benefit from your perspective on quantum entanglement communication." Later, as Elias walked them back to the shelter, a comfortable silence enveloped them. The night air was warm, fragrant with the scent of night-blooming flowers imported from a dozen worlds. "Thank you," Mila said softly. "Your sister is kind." "She likes you," he replied. "More importantly, she respects you." They paused at an observation deck overlooking the shipyards. In the distance, a massive cruiser was preparing for departure, its engines glowing like artificial stars. "I was married," Mila said suddenly, the words emerging from a place she rarely accessed. "His name was Valen. He died getting us onto the last evacuation ship." She swallowed hard. "Sometimes I feel guilty that I'm still breathing when he isn't." Elias didn't reply immediately, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. "Survivor's guilt," he finally said. "I see it in the hospital every day." "But Mila," he turned to face her, the city lights casting shadows across his features. "Living fully honors those we've lost. Hiding from life doesn't." "Is that what I'm doing? Hiding?" His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "I think we both are." The touch sent a current through her, igniting dormant neural pathways. Without conscious command, her ports activated, emitting a soft blue glow that illuminated the space between them. "I've never seen them lit," he whispered, fascination evident in his voice. "They respond to intense emotion," she admitted, embarrassment and desire warring within her. "I can't always control it." His free hand gently traced the glowing outline of her temple, and Mila's breath caught. In her culture, touching an Asterian's ports was intimate, reserved only for bondmates. She should pull away. She should maintain boundaries. Instead, she leaned into his touch and watched his eyes widen as the neural glow intensified, bathing them both in ethereal blue light. "Mila," he breathed her name like a prayer. "I think I'm falling." "Mommy?" Tora's sleepy voice broke the moment. "Are we home yet?" Elias stepped back, the spell broken but not forgotten. As they resumed their walk to the shelter, his hand remained firmly clasped around hers, a silent promise that this conversation wasn't over. It was only later, lying awake in her narrow bed, that Mila allowed herself to contemplate what might have been said had they not been interrupted. And for the first time since fleeing her dying world, she permitted herself to imagine a future that contained more than mere survival. "Aliens go home." The red-painted letters dripped like blood down the shelter's exterior wall. Mila stared at them, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Similar graffiti had appeared throughout the district over the past week, along with increasingly violent rhetoric on public channels. "Don't let it worry you," Natera said, handing her a cleaning solution. "Ignorance wears many masks, but rarely has actual courage behind it." But Mila had seen this pattern before, on her home world when resources grew scarce, on transit stations where refugees became convenient scapegoats. Small aggressions always preceded larger ones. Her communicator buzzed with a message from Elias, meeting with hospital board running late. "Rain check on the botanical garden? Tomorrow instead?" Disappointment pressed against her ribs. Since their moment under the stars 2 weeks ago, they'd been circling each other cautiously, neither quite ready to name what was growing between them, yet both acutely aware of its presence. "Tomorrow is perfect," she replied. "Tora will be at her integration class anyway." Tucking the communicator away, Mila heard a commotion from the street, raised voices, the rhythmic chant of protesters. Her instincts screamed danger. "Bring everyone inside," she told Natera. "Lock the doors." "It's just noise," the older woman insisted. "They do this every—" The window shattered inward, a projectile narrowly missing Tora, who had been drawing at a table near the wall. Mila moved with preternatural speed, scooping her daughter into her arms and shielding her as more objects, rocks, bottles, garbage, crashed through windows. "Everybody downstairs!" Natera shouted, herding shell-shocked refugees toward the basement. Outside, the chanting had taken on a more menacing cadence. Through the broken window, Mila saw figures moving closer, some carrying makeshift weapons. Security forces were nowhere to be seen. "Mommy, I'm scared," Tora whimpered against her neck. "It's all right, little star," Mila soothed, though her heart raced. "We're going somewhere safe." They had nearly reached the basement door when a deafening crash announced the front entrance being forced open. The protesters had breached the shelter. Panic erupted as refugees scattered, seeking hiding places or escape routes. In the chaos, Mila felt Tora slip from her grasp as someone knocked into them. Her daughter's terrified cry cut through the din, followed by a sickening thud and silence. "Tora!" Mila screamed, fighting against the tide of bodies to reach the small, crumpled form on the floor. Blood, vivid azure against purple skin, pooled beneath Tora's head where she had struck the corner of a table. The world narrowed to this single point of focus, her child, injured, possibly dying. Mila gathered Tora into her arms, neural ports blazing with fear and rage, and searched desperately for an exit. A service door at the back of the kitchen offered escape into an alley. Mila ran, clutching her unconscious daughter, the sounds of destruction fading behind her. She needed medical help. She needed Elias. Her trembling fingers activated her communicator. "Elias," she gasped when he answered. "Tora's hurt. The shelter was attacked. We need—" "Where are you?" His voice was sharp with alarm. "The alley behind Sector 8. She's bleeding, Elias. She won't wake up. Stay there. I'm coming." The minutes stretched into an eternity as Mila cradled Tora, applying pressure to the wound, whispering promises and pleas. When headlights illuminated the alley, she tensed, ready to flee again, but it was Elias who emerged from the vehicle, medical bag in hand. "Let me see her," he said, kneeling beside them, his professional demeanor belied by the fear in his eyes. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, assessing, treating, stabilizing. "We need to get her to the hospital." The next hours blurred together, the rush to the emergency department, Tora disappearing behind doors where Mila couldn't follow, endless waiting. Elias moved between worlds, sometimes with her in the stark waiting area, sometimes behind those forbidden doors where his medical expertise was needed. "Asterian biology is complex," he explained during one such return. "But she's responding to treatment. The neurosurgeons are cautiously optimistic." Dawn was breaking when they were finally allowed to see Tora, small and vulnerable in a hospital bed designed for humans. Medical devices monitored her vital signs, their soft beeping a reassuring rhythm. "She'll sleep for a while," Elias said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "But she'll recover fully." Relief crashed over Mila like a wave, leaving her trembling. Elias caught her as her knees buckled, guiding her to a chair beside the bed. His arms encircled her, steadying, comforting, and something inside Mila finally fractured. She wept against his chest, releasing months of fear and loneliness and desperate strength. "I can't lose her," she sobbed. "She's all I have left." "You have me," he whispered into her hair. "If you want me, you have me." She lifted her face to his, neural ports pulsing with emotion she could no longer contain. I want you, she admitted. I've wanted you since you offered me food in the rain. But I'm afraid. Of what? Of this world that just tried to kill my child for being different. Her voice hardened. Of loving someone whose species hates mine. Elias cupped her face in his hands. Then we change the world, he said simply. Together. In the sterile hospital room, with her daughter breathing steadily nearby, Mila surrendered to a different kind of courage. When Elias's lips found hers, she didn't pull away. The kiss deepened, charged with shared fear and relief and something far more profound. Later, with Tora safely monitored by medical staff, they found sanctuary in Elias's apartment. Words gave way to touch, to exploration, to the discovery of how an Asterian and a human might create a new language of intimacy. Her neural ports cast their blue light across his skin as they moved together, connecting in ways that transcended physical biology. In the aftermath, tangled in sheets and each other, Mila watched dawn break over the city. Fear crept back into her consciousness, not just of the violence they'd escaped, but of this new vulnerability. Tora had almost died because of who she was, because this place considered her alien. How could Mila justify risking her child's safety for her own happiness? You're planning to leave, Elias said quietly, reading her silence. She couldn't deny it. What happened at the shelter will happen again. The next time, we might not be as lucky. So you'll run. Again. Disappointment edged his words. I'll protect my daughter, she corrected, pulling away from his warmth. That's my responsibility. And what about us? Mila gathered her clothes, already rebuilding the walls around her heart. There can't be an U.S. Not in this world. Not now. She left before sunrise, his anguished expression burned into her memory, adding one more loss to the constellation of grief she carried. The interplanetary transport terminal hummed with activity as Mila checked their meager luggage one final time. Their new identities and travel documents had cost nearly everything she'd saved, but they would provide a fresh start on a colony world where Asterians weren't quite so rare. Why can't Elias come with us? Tora asked, her small face solemn beneath the hood that concealed her distinctive features. The bruises from her injury had faded, but a thin scar remained at her temple, a permanent reminder of hatred's cost. His life is here, Mila answered, the practiced explanation hollow even to her own ears. He has his work, his family. But he loves us, Tora insisted with a child's simple certainty. He told me so. A familiar ache spread through Mila's chest. In the week since she'd walked away from him, the pain hadn't diminished. If anything, it had crystallized into something sharper, more defined, a constant companion that reminded her with every breath of what she was sacrificing. Final boarding call for colony transport vessel Horizon, departing for Proxima Centauri. All passengers proceed to Gate 7. That's us, Mila said, forcing brightness into her voice. Ready for our adventure? Tora's responding nod lacked enthusiasm, but she obediently took her mother's hand as they joined the queue for final security screening. The line moved slowly, each passenger subjected to retinal scans and neural pattern analysis, ostensibly for identification purposes, though everyone knew it was really to detect potential threats. When they were 3 people from the front, a commotion erupted at the gate. Raised voices, the sound of something heavy falling, a collective gasp from the crowd. Let me through. A familiar voice cut through the noise. I have authorization. Mila's heart stuttered as Elias pushed his way through the security barrier, brandishing some kind of official documentation. He was breathless, disheveled, his eyes wild as they searched the terminal. Elias. Tora broke free of Mila's grasp, running toward him despite Mila's desperate attempt to hold her back. He caught the child in his arms, lifting her high before setting her down and kneeling to eye level. I need to talk to your mom, he said, his gaze finding Mila over Tora's head. It's important. Pride demanded she ignore him, continue toward the gate, leave this planet and its painful memories behind. But Tora was already pulling him toward her, and Mila found herself rooted in place as he approached. You're making a scene, she said quietly. I'm preventing a mistake, he countered. Yours and mine. From his pocket, he produced a small data chip. This is a medical research grant. Fully funded expedition to study Asterian neural interfaces and their potential applications in human medicine. 3 years on Europa Station. Mila blinked in confusion. What does that have to do with me? Everything. He stepped closer. The grant requires an Asterian research partner. I submitted your name. They approved it this morning. You had no right. I also had these made. He pressed 2 identification cards into her hand. Residency permits. Permanent ones. For both of you. As dependents of a Federation medical researcher. The implications crashed over her. That would make us family, he finished. Legally. Permanently. If you want it. Around them, the terminal had grown quiet, travelers and security personnel alike watching the drama unfold. In any other circumstance, Mila would have shrunk from such attention. Now, she barely noticed. Why? She asked, her voice barely audible. Why would you do this? Because running away solves nothing. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Because change happens when people like us refuse to be separated. Because I love you, Mila of Asteria. I love your brilliant mind and your fierce heart and the way your neural ports glow when you're angry or afraid or, he smiled, aroused. A nervous titter ran through the crowd, but Elias continued undeterred. Most of all, I love the family we could be, you, me, and Tora. A new constellation no one's ever seen before. Tora tugged at Mila's cloak. Can we stay, Mommy? Please. Mila looked from her daughter's hopeful face to Elias's determined one. The path of least resistance lay through the gate, escape, anonymity, safety of a sort. But something else beckoned from Elias's outstretched hand, a harder road, perhaps, but one walked together. The people who attacked the shelter, she said. They're still out there. Yes, he acknowledged. And we'll face them. Not alone, but with others who believe in a different future. Look around you, Mila. She did. For the first time, she noticed the diversity in the crowd watching them, humans and non-humans alike, some with expressions of sympathy, others with dawning recognition of something universal in this tableau. Every act of love is an act of rebellion against hate, Elias said softly. Every mixed family, every cross-species friendship, every moment of connection, they all matter. They all change the universe, one relationship at a time. Mila's neural ports began to glow, not with fear or anger, but with something far more powerful. Hope, perhaps. Or possibility. The transport is leaving, she whispered. Let it, he replied. Stay. Fight. Love. Build something new with me. The final boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Decision time. Mila looked down at Tora, who was watching her with complete trust, then back to Elias, who offered not safety but meaning. Slowly, deliberately, she reached up and pushed back her hood, exposing her silver hair and glowing neural ports to the crowd, no longer hiding, no longer ashamed. Yes, she said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. We'll stay. We'll build something new. Elias's smile was like sunrise after the longest night, and when he gathered both her and Tora into his arms, the cheers that erupted around them seemed to shake the very foundations of the terminal. Later that evening, as they stood on the balcony of what would now be their shared home, watching ships depart for distant worlds, Mila allowed herself to truly believe in this fragile new beginning. "Are you still afraid?" Elias asked, his arm warm around her waist. "Yes," she admitted. "But fear doesn't have to be the end of a story." Sometimes, she turned in his embrace, neural ports casting their blue light across his beloved face, sometimes it's just the beginning. In the room behind them, Tora slept peacefully, dreaming perhaps of a future where the word alien had lost its power to wound. And as Mila and Elias sealed their commitment with a kiss that bridged worlds, that future didn't seem quite so impossible after all.